Lisa is going to be our roving mic holder at the back, running around to, well, it'd be quite good actually if we could open table to table and talk about orders. Should we start there? Should we start with this table where you happen to be standing?
Which part of other people's presentations do these presenters take away with them? Well, that's good, because that actually leads me to what I was talking about over on that table. The bit that I take away with me is about participatory budgeting, which actually didn't get mentioned but got alluded to, because I went to a workshop about 9 years ago about participatory budgeting. It's part of the underpinning principle of our programme, and effectively participatory budgeting is about people being enabled to make decisions about the pot of money that's available within confines of being able to spend it. So they're told, here is X amount of money. If you spend all of it on that service, there isn't any left to spend on that service. So think about how you want to distribute this available amount of money. Now you alluded to that towards the end of your presentation, because that is about the future-proofing. That's the bit of the agenda that's about saying to people, okay, we haven't got infinite resources. There is a limit to how much money, how many services, how much of everything that we've actually got. So let's talk about how we want to distribute that and make that the big picture. And I could go on to talk about library cuts and things, because I feel quite strongly about them as well. I, for example, think that we should be using all of our library buildings for lots of other things as well. It's not about shutting them, it's about opening them more. It's about having coffee mornings in there, reading groups, opening them up in the evening for drama. You know, it's about using that space better, charging for that opportunity, people paying to use it as a service, and it all becoming really sustainable.
Thank you, Steve. We'll cut you off there. And over this one. Any questions?
I'll be very quick. Partly so I saw Michelle saying 3 minutes per table, so we're going to be very quick. So on the PV question, I think you're absolutely right. There's a danger, though, that PV is about a very small pot of money and isn't really actually about empowerment at all. It's just a space where a few people get together and talk. It can be an incredibly powerful tool for really building consensus and building on, but it can also be a bit of a sop, and there's a danger that it's used as the latter and not the former. What would I take away? I think your final story about the table tennis table and the early departure from hospital kind of was an example of how narrative is really important in getting over a bigger point. And that will stick with me for a long time, I think. And then you've really challenged me with this whole notion of values and how we change values. And I've got a set of questions around where the political debate is now and how we move the political debate and how we change the value sets in our culture. And that's not a short-term thing. And that's something that's bothering me much longer term.
Simon?
I take away Sue's example of there being a majority of older people on the board making decisions. But picking up on what Simon was talking about participatory budgeting, my concern is that it's just that, it's a sop. And I would much rather that people looked at the overall budgets, then got diverted into looking at having power over a small budget. So, you know, we're having cuts at the moment. Those cuts could easily be financed by a more redistributive tax system and or spending less on armaments. I can't see any meaningful discussion really between people who are active in climate change and thinking about the amount that gets spent on arms every year in the war. So that's the sort of level of PB I'd like it to be at that.
Thank you, Peter. Moving on to the next table then, or whichever direction you want, Lisa, where you happen to be. Four. Choose your best question, because you probably only get one by the looks of it.
We didn't do a very good job at, we had 4 questions and we didn't actually get around to deciding which one was our top priority. So let me choose. I think one of the points, I think it was sort of the base issue of
importance of engaging people on things that really make a difference to the bigger things. And we wanted to maybe unpick that slightly and just challenge, from our perspective, we sort of raised a few, examples of the importance of, the small things of the importance of that, and actually encouraging people to get involved and to have a say, and then, that itself leads to much bigger things. So we just wanted to hear a bit more on that, really.
Okay, that's quite a simple one, really. Effectively, what we're doing in the whole of our POP programme is we're just inviting people to say, actually, what's going to make a difference to you? Now, that manifests itself totally differently depending on what the other local available resources are, either in terms of staff, it could be community development workers, it could be local authority staff, it could be, I don't know, members of a local sports club. So it could be those kind of resources. But equally so, it's about people thinking, okay, the thing that's really going to make a difference to this village or this town is having in place a lunch club. If we have in place a lunch club, we get to come out once a week, we get to eat, we get to socialise, that ties us into other things as well. That, I think, has possibly been the easiest part of the programme to put into practice. As far as I'm concerned, it's the most exciting as well. And the only challenges, I would say, there is to making that work is that it's a bit like self-directed support with personalisation. It takes a while for people to realise that they have permission to be able to ask for something. That, because people are so used to putting up with the services that they're given and just accepting that someone else knows best, or someone else really holds the purse strings. And I think that what we're doing within the POP programme has made quite a difference to that, actually, as well. Is that enough? Is that really answering the question? Okay.
Thank you. Do you want to add something?
I would agree with you, and we had quite a strong conversation on our table saying exactly the same. There are people who don't necessarily want to get involved in those big discussions. And I think that's partly right. And you can't start from a place where from long-term future doesn't make sense to most people, and you can't expect everyone to get involved, and that's also never going to happen. But I think my worry is the government is seeing the big society in a very static sense. We move from here to the big society by next year, and everything will be all right. Even if you supported the big society fully, that's clearly utter nonsense. So how do we get from where we are to where we want to be? How do we start from that conversation, or what is the key intervention, like a lunch group, that allows you to build over the course of X number of years into a much broader conversation about the future, about values and so on? And can we have I guess my plea is for us in this position where we are pulling people together, having a stronger strategic sense over a very long period of time of what we think our interventions now are going to lead to over the course of 10, 20 years. It's not a case of asking people to think about the 10, 20 years. It's what are our interventions going to lead to that take us to that values conversation over a course of time. Whether we have 30 years of climate change or not is another matter.
Thanks, Simon. Peter?
I don't think it's straightforward, actually. There's tension. I mean, particularly climate change, there's a real tension between, say you have to start from where people are, which ends up with ideas about changing light bulbs, and most people actually not responding to that at all, because, we're told there's this species-level cataclysm coming towards us, and we should change our light bulbs. And the cognitive dissonance in that is immense. So it's finding ways to communicate to people about the urgency of what we change, without at the same time terrifying people, alienating people. It comes back really to thinking about how do we communicate in ways that are emotionally, cognitively non-dissonant and coherent. That has to be a group process. I mean, we're hardwired evolutionarily to be social beings. So it's, to me, does this first step enable us as a community to be more creative together and unleash a kind of more collective intelligence? Is the first one.
Thank you. We're roughly halfway through time-wise, so just to give you an indicator of, have to put the accelerator on, I think. Next table.
Our question really is tying at something that each of the members of the panel said. And it was really about how we can empower local communities by commissioning or by spending our budget wisely with those local communities. Particularly talking around LM3, keeping money within the local communities. So it picked up the transition town stuff. It picked up showing value for money. Our tables made up equally of local authorities and third sector organisations. And it was what the panel really thinks about the limited budgets that are being spent. How can those genuinely be spent within local communities to reinforce communities with genuine feeling that they are part of that process, rather than the money being limited not being spent and it going off to large multinationals outside of communities.
40 seconds each.
And the first question is, can it be spent not as a grant, but as part of a revolving loan fund? In other words, is what you're seeking to support, does it have any way of generating a social enterprise? That's a big focus of our work at the moment. And in some cases, there are obvious income streams. So if it's around renewable energy, you can use the feed-in tariffs to generate them. That's exactly what Fast Community Energy are doing, seeking to do. So where there is a clear income stream, then I would say use it as a revolving loan fund rather than as a grant. Where it is a grant, then if you can do it in a way that is tied into local jobs or local projects, then I think that can make an immense difference.
That's Peter.
We'll go and push for a lot of time.
Sorry, the other side of
And all I'll say is that our cost-benefit analysis actually identified how investing very small amounts of money into local opportunities, which are going to be vastly different from Lyme Regis over to Christchurch up to Gillingham, how that actually generates an economic climate within the local